Come on. Little. There we go. About like that. What's up, guys? We got quite a bit of work to do today. Get my lights right here. So, the first order of business, if I can get this to line up. There we go. So, first off, we're swapping some parts around. This is the rear end out of an Axial SMT10, I think. I think it's still Axial. It might be Horizon. No, I think it's Axial. Which is an AR-60 rear end. And then this is an Axial Bomber AR-60 front end. And if you know anything about the SMT10s, they have open diff. So wheels spin independently from each other. And then the Bomber has a locked differential that does not move independently. So, and what we want to do is we want to lock the rear end in this. I thought about just putting some JB Weld inside of this differential. And then I thought to myself, what if I don't like having a locked rear end, and then this is basically junk? Because once you get, if you fill this with JB Weld, you're not going to get it back out. So I've decided, let's experiment a little bit. Let's take the open diff, put it in the front end of the Bomber, and like take the locked diff and put it in the rear end of the Mega Truck, and see if we like that setup. If we don't like that setup, we can swap it back. And, you know, we're just out a little bit of time and work. So that's a lot easier than committing to filling this with JB Weld. If I don't like the Bomber with open diff in the front, then I can JB Weld that and it'll all be locked up. And vice versa. I can, you know, flip everything back around. We also need to do some maintenance. Speaking of maintenance, I took the transmission out of the Bomber just a little bit ago. I have not taken this transmission apart in at least 4 years. This transmission, I just cleaned the outside. I did not take this apart yet. You can see there's quite a bit of rust on the screws and stuff. This thing has been through hell and back 10 times over. The only thing that I've done as far as upgrades, I put a Hot Racing 64 tooth spur gear in here, because when I first got the Bomber, I tried to go brushless and just eviscerated the stock spur gear. So and then I ended up taking the brushless system out because it didn't have a whole lot of low speed control back then. I was really bashing the Bomber hard back then, and it's still got almost all the original parts. I've upgraded a few things here and there. You know, it's got a metal steering link. It's got I wouldn't call that an upgraded servo. That's actually kind of a weak servo, but it's sort of better. And then we've got Vanquish trailing arms. Got some Desert Lizards in the back. Couple of minor things, but not much. This is mostly stock Bomber. Now, like I said, this transmission has not been taken apart in at least 4 years. So we're going to take it apart today and see if old school Axial is better than new school Axial, because I mean, I feel a little bit of resistance in here, but to be 4 years old, I mean, all these bearings are still good, and I've had this thing in and out of the water constantly. And here's my thing. This is my gripe. The SCX, and you can be mad at me if you want, but the SCX 10.3 transmission, I absolutely hate that transmission. This transmission right here, this is the bee's knees. I don't know how many Axial rigs have this style of transmission. I don't know if this is the SCX2's transmission. I think this is the SCX2's transmission, the way this transfer case is. But this is the transmission to use, guys. This is so nice. I've never had any issues with it. I got a little bit of clicking going on in there. From last week's live stream, I was really beating on it pretty hard, and I heard some clicking. I don't hear any clicking now, so I'm not sure what that was causing, but we're going to go through here anyway and do some maintenance and just see, you know, if there's anything to be done. I mean, I'm sure the grease has got to be almost dust in there by now. I mean, 4 years without any maintenance done to this transmission, but it's still spinning pretty nice. I don't feel any wiggle or anything in the bearings or anything like that. So I mean, we might get lucky and this just needs a little refresh of grease and it's good to go. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first things first, we're going to see how compatible these differentials are, which I'm assuming they are very compatible. If you look at the difference here, this is the open diff from the SMT-10, and this is the locked diff from the Bomber. And I want to say they're the same tooth spline and everything. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the same, exact same. So you can do a direct swap. If that doesn't work, we're going to open the diffs up and swap the locked and open spider gears around. But I do think these are compatible. Now, the pinion gear looks slightly different. So I guess we'll figure out if they are actually compatible or not. But let's just get into it and find out. All right, so this is the open diff. We're going to put the open diff, and that's the thing about AR60s. So AR60s, you can actually run them this way and this way. So you have to be careful which side to put it on, or else your wheels will spin backwards. And that's something, the AR60, it's cool because you can change the direction of which direction your wheels spin, which is cool, but you have to remember to do both the rear and the front at the same side so that they spin together. Otherwise, they'll spin against each other or away from each other. So if I remember correctly, we're going to go this way. We'll just test it. You don't want to put everything together and then find out later that you put it in backwards. But, all right, we got that in there. And now this is the SMT diff. So it should be open. We're going to slide an axle in there just to make sure. All right, we got the axles in. Yep, we're open. All right. So now, if I spin this drive shaft this way, okay, we're going forward. Let me spin the rear drive shaft, same direction. Now we're going backwards. All right, so that's not good. Unless the transmission is set up that way. No, it spins the same. So to go forwards, we need to spin this way, and that spins backwards. And then, or maybe I'm going backwards. That might be going backwards. So what's going this way? No, we gotta flip it. This is why you check. Should always check that. So we're gonna flip it this way. And you know, I don't know if SCX 10.2 axles can do the same thing. I don't think they can. You see how we flip that? And now we're going forward. So, rotationally, if we spin this way, we're going forwards. If we spin that one this way, we're going forwards on the back. Okay, so that's how that's supposed to go. Yep. So I'm positive that these are just fully compatible. Let's put the lock diff in here. Which direction would be forward on this? That's backwards, I think. Come on. Let's lift you up just a smidge. Okay, so that's backwards. So that's forwards. So this way? Right? I don't know. You just kind of have to guess sometimes. Pop those in there. Maybe that's why they don't make the AR60s very often anymore. I don't know. I like the ability to swap your diff around. I like the compatibility that comes with. Come on, get in there. There we go. All right. So now, let's go. We're going forwards or backwards? That's forwards. See how that's spinning backwards? So the front wheels would be spinning forwards and the back wheels would be spinning backwards. So what we have to do, pull those axles back out. and then flip this around. Pop the axles back in. Oh, dropping stuff. Get back in there. Stop that. Alright. Get that back in there. And that. Whoop, whoop. You gotta line up those holes. Come on. There we go. Alright, so now we're locked in. So now we should all be going the same direction. Yep. Now we're all going the same direction. Okay, cool. So that's done. And it is compatible. So now you know if you want to go open diff, lock diff, and you have some older rigs and some newer rigs, as long as it's an AR60, it'll work. As long as it's an AR60, those gears are compatible. You can flip them around and do everything you need to do. So how cool is that? That's actually pretty nice. So this is pretty much done. All we got to do is put the caps back on and lock this differential back in, and we'll have a locked rear end and an open front end in both rigs. So that'll be fun. And then we can get started on this transmission. So let's put the caps on. I got these little plastic caps. Where's my cleaning towel? There we go. Got a little bit of surface rust on the end of those bearings from all the mud and water and stuff. You just got to make sure you clean it real good. Like I said, if you're going to go in mud and water, you need marine grease. That's what you got to do. You got to put marine grease on the insides of these axle housings and stuff to kind of keep the water out. It is a lifesaver when it comes to saving those bearings, which I'll go ahead and do that with the diff out now that we know which direction to go. Alright, that goes that way. We're going to take a little tiny bit. We're talking small. You do not pack these things full of grease. About yay much. Just right there on the end. What that does is it creates a nice little water barrier. So if water does get somehow past these axle housings, it won't get past the bearing caps. Definitely don't want to pack this thing full of grease, because then you're going to add a bunch of extra resistance to your drive line. That's going to kill your battery faster. It's going to wear your parts out faster. Do not pack these things full. Just a little dab. You can put a little dab on the gear, just so your drivetrain's a little quiet. We're talking like that much. That much. It's a little bit, and it'll work its way. It'll work its way around that gear. You don't have to coat the whole thing. So that goes in there that way. Nice and locked in place. Now we're going to put our caps on. One cap. Let's clean this cap. Doing all this in real time. Just to show you guys some maintenance stuff that maybe you didn't think about doing. If you drive your RCs in water, just having waterproof electronics does not mean you can go in water and mud as much as you want without having to work on it. You do have to work on it. People always comment on a lot of my mudding videos, or where I go in deep water and stuff, and they're like, oh, you're going to wreck it. You're going to wreck it. And they don't realize, and I do make maintenance videos, but they don't realize when they're watching this stuff that I take these things apart all the time. If you go in mud and water, you're going to have to do this kind of maintenance regularly. The more often, the better. I mean, you don't want to wear your screws out by taking them in and out so often with these plastic parts and stuff, but you got to do maintenance. Usually, I'll say usually about, I mean, it depends on what rig it is. Like this rig, for example, if I go in the mud, since I've already done the marine grease all through the axles and transmission and all that stuff, I usually only take them apart and clean them about every 5 to 10 runs. But that's this rig specifically. Other rigs I do more often. Uh, some rigs I do less often. It really depends on the rig. You have to kind of learn how many runs you can get out of it before you have to take stuff apart and clean it and maintain the bearings and stuff like that. I I don't have any more TRX4s specifically because I had to do maintenance so often on them. TRX4 is a great rig, but if you're going to go in mud and water, for some reason those portals just do not keep water out. They don't. I've tried them, I coated them with marine grease and stuff. I've tried to seal them as best I can, but if you go in water often, those portals they just fill up and there's just not a good way to keep the water out of them. And I was just constantly having to replace the bearings in the portals, and that's why I don't have any TRX4s now. Axial is better for a better brand of RC and design of RC for the type of videos and stuff that I make, for the type of terrain and stuff I like to go on. TRX4s are definitely a great rig. It's very reliable and it's very durable depending on what you're doing. And I will say that a TRX4 with clapped out bearings will still probably outperform a lot of Axial rigs. But I just don't like driving on busted bearings or worn out bearings. You guys who are in the RC hobby would know, once your bearings start to go, your rig gets way noisier. All the drivetrain noise and everything, it sounds like a freight train going down the trail. And that's not pleasant for me. I like a nice quiet drivetrain. The Bomber's pretty quiet, even with that metal hot racing spur gear, it's still pretty quiet. And that's because the bearings are well maintained and they stay maintained. Now, as far as the TRX4 goes, if you were to do what I do with the TRX4, you're gonna have to take those portals apart, at least the portals, maybe not transmission, but at least the portals probably every run almost, if you go in mud and water. Almost every run. Just because those portals, they like to leak. Is that screw not long enough? Did I grab the wrong screw? Or is it spun? That looks like the right one. Yeah, that one might be a little spun. That's alright. It'll hold it in place good enough. It's a problem you can run into. Just get it as tight as you can. You've got to be careful with the plastic housings. You can't really crank on them. And then to keep water out of here, if you look, this is old grease. I haven't even re-greased this. But I put a small bead of marine grease all the way around this seal, and it's like a gasket. It'll actually keep the water out. I need to redo that just a little bit. And we're talking very little. Just right here along the edge. This is how I keep water out of my drivetrain. Just a little bead of marine grease around the case. We're not packing it full. We're just making a seal. It'd be cool if they actually made a gasket for something like this, but I don't think they do. And the grease also holds the cover in place for you while you screw it in. That's also nice. So 1.5 for these little bitty guys. Get that one started. Got all my screws in a little magnetic tray off to the side. That way I don't lose them. Just try and get them all started first. Anytime I'm using 1.5 size hardware, I try to be real careful because it is so easy to strip these. Usually you don't want to use a drill. I mean, you can use a drill to take them out, but you want to put them in by hand. They're really easy to strip. And then this one. All right, got them all started. Take my Helios tool. This is literally my favorite tool. What's up? Gotta love maintenance. It's the only thing that's gonna keep these things running. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was like, you know, a millionaire and didn't feel like doing this, because like, don't get me wrong, it's definitely not fun for me to do maintenance, but this is how I save money. If you take this stuff to the hobby shop and you're like, hey, my bearings are making noise, can you fix this? It's like $60 an hour, guys. So I'm gonna tell you right now, doing your own maintenance is gonna save you so much money in this hobby. And it helps you learn a lot about the rigs too. Everybody should learn to work on their own stuff. I work on my 1-to-1s. I also work on my own RCs. Again, you don't want to over torque these. So as soon as you feel the bolt stop, just quit. Don't over tighten it. Housing's plastic. You don't want to jack it up. Right about there. All right, so that is, whoop, we forgot to do that. We got to put those back in. These you got to line up the holes of the axle. Back in. Rotate. There you go. And then that is just a 2mm. It's a very short 2mm on the top and the bottom. That one you could honestly maybe put in with a drill, but I'd rather just be careful and put it in with a driver. Should always invest in tools. Come on. Not all the way in there. There we go. There we go. Like I said, as soon as you feel that tighten up, do not over torque it. Those plastic housings can spin out real easy. And we got one on the bottom. Come on. There we go. Done. And we gotta do this side. Line up the holes. Rotate the axle. A little more. Come on. Rotate. Rotate. Come on. You're not spinning. I know you're not. Find it. Find it. Bruh. I know you're in there. Do not make me take that case off just to get the axle back in. This is the joys of the hobby right here. It's taking things apart, in and out, in and out. Come on. Come on, you gotta fit in that slot. Rude. How rude. You're gonna make me do all that extra work because I can't find the slot. Guys, I can't find the hole. right, let's, whoa, why are you guys way over there? What are you doing? All right, let's get this back over here. Nope. Come on, one more try. One more try. Nope. You're gonna make it difficult on me. I'm gonna have to hold. I'm gonna have to rotate the diff to line up with the axle to get it to slide in, which is frustrating. Ooh, maybe I can rotate it. Okay, I can rotate the diff from the drive shaft. I just have to unbolt from down here. And this is the nice thing about working on RCs versus one-to-ones. I can just pick the whole truck up and work on it. When I'm working on my one-to-one, I can't just lift the truck up and work on it. I have to crawl underneath it, jack it up, that kind of stuff. It's very frustrating. At least with this stuff, I can get underneath, I can move it around and work on it how it needs to be worked on. Where'd my drill go? Oh, there it is. Losing my mind. All right, now let's find, there we go. Is this a 1.5? That's a 1.5. There we go. And take the pin out. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Ooh. Really? Okay. All right. I guess we'll take it off from the other side and rotate it that way. Come on. Bread. There we go. There we go. There we go. Good. Is it in? Did we somehow manage that? Come on. It's trying. What is the holdup here? Trying really hard not to have to take this back apart just to get that axle in. That's got to be it. Tap, tap. Little tap. There we go. Just had to negotiate it a little bit. There, and then I didn't have to take anything apart to get back together. Great. Whoa. On there, good. We are on there, right? We are going the right direction. This would be a bad time to find out. Nope, we're all good. Now we gotta put those 2mm back in. And then the mega truck just needs wheels. And then we're good to go. Is that gonna thread in there? All right, we're good on that one. Ta-da. Need one more on the bottom. There's a pretty ingenious way to put these axles together. I really like Axial's design on their axles. At least the way my brain works, everything's kind of common sense. I mean, all these things work really good. Okay, so we are fully locked in the rear. So that means mega truck wheelies are in the future. So now we're going to be able to wheelie this thing. That'll be all kinds of fun. And we got to put our mud bashers back on. I really like these wheels and tires. Get the old T-wrench. I have a driver, but I still just always use the T-wrench. It's kind of a force of habit at this point. I feel like everybody in the hobby has T-wrenches. Everybody. If you own a T-wrench, like this video. I want to see how many people have T-wrenches. somewhere. I keep a T-wrench in my pocket. That's how many of them I have. I have them all over the house. All right, that's locked up. Let me get our other one on. Yeah, I really like those. I think these are some Amazon 2.2 rims, but they look really nice. They have a red cap that bolts on to hide the axle nut. Get this on. Ooh, that's gonna be so nice. I cannot wait to start popping wheelies with this thing. With the open diff in the rear, every time I tried to pop a wheelie, one of these would break traction and it would fall back down. So now we can do some mud bogging and have some wheelie action at the same time. Which, this is going to be a definite upgrade for the mega truck. I think it's going to be a mild upgrade for the bomber too, to have an open diff in the front. All right, we're good for that. I'm going to put those covers. These are what the covers look like. I'll put those covers on off camera later, but that's done. We are fully locked now, and we're still open in the front. See the difference? Open in the front, locked in the rear. So this is going to be a big upgrade for that. So now we can get on to working on the bomber. Just move you guys over here for this. Now this should be an upgrade because having an open diff in the front is going to allow you to actually get a sharper turning radius. And that should be really awesome. This thing is almost completely taken apart. The only thing holding it on right now is like 2 screws right there. But we'll get to that here in a second. I got to figure out where this came from. Oh, is that where it came from? Yep. Okay, now I know. All right, so that goes into that hub. Okay, so I'm missing one more. Now this is an old school style of axle with the dog bone style. But, and I think some of the newer Axial rigs still use that. But who knows? All right, where did I put? Oh, there you are. All right, whoop. Great. Oh, there we go. Whew. That was almost lost forever. Little tiny part. Working on the freezer today. Having a white top helps me find missing screws and stuff. I have all my screws in this little dish right here, and that does help keep track of them when you're doing big jobs like this. If you're only taking a couple of screws out, it's not a big deal to set them on a table or something. But if you're doing what I'm doing, where I'm basically taking a whole transmission apart, all of this stuff's coming out, I mean, you really need something magnetic to hold your screws together. I do have a work mat with some magnets and stuff in it too, but that can be kind of a hassle, depending on how many screws you're taking off and stuff like that. Before we get too far into this, let me grease. Let's set you over here. And also, I mean, generally you would take all of this stuff completely off, but I'm trying to save myself a little bit of work. I mean, it's not a big deal to go around some of this stuff. All right, so that goes in there that way. We're going to put a little bit of grease in there just to keep out any water that might work its way in there. Like I said before, just a dab. We're just dabbing. That's going to be enough for both sides. We're going to dab a little bit there, dab a little bit there. All we're doing is kind of creating a seal because the bearing's going to go up against that and kind of smush it in place. And that is going to be all the grease we need to keep water out. Please do not pack your differential full of grease. You're going to regret it. And then we're going to take another little dab of grease. We're going to go right there like that. We are talking minute, very little grease. You do not need a bunch. I see so many people packing grease all up in here. That bearing's good. Packing grease all through there, and it's completely unnecessary, and all you're going to do is hurt it. You only need a little bit, just enough to keep the water out and keep everything lubricated. That's all you need. Also, all my non-magnetic stuff, like anything that's aluminum or anything that's plastic, I have in this little bin. It just helps me keep track of my parts. You can actually get these bins at Lowe's. It's like a legit... Hang on, let me move some stuff. It's like a legit little tote. How cool is that? Yeah, you can get those at Lowe's. I have a whole bunch of them. What's up? All right, we don't need that right now. We need the case. There we go. All right, we're gonna put a small bead of grease around the case, or not the case, but the cover. That'll also keep the water outside of the housing. And like I said, it's gonna be a very small amount. We're literally just barely putting anything on there. If you pack this thing full of grease, it will definitely keep the water out, but it'll add other problems that you don't want, like burning up motors or snapping drive shafts. Cause all kinds of issues. All right, and then we're gonna put our cover on like so. Come on, there we go. All right, like I said, the grease will hold that in place for you too, so it serves a double purpose. These axles don't have a whole lot of grease on them, like almost non-existent, so I am going to put a little bit of grease down the axles. That just kind of stops any surface rust from forming. That'll help them live a little longer. I mean, these axles are already 4 or 5 years old, and I haven't bent one. Knock on some wood somewhere for me. But I haven't had any bad axle issues out of these. All right, a little dab of grease on both sides. We'll slide this in, slide that one in. Just rotate them till they fall in place with the differential. That one's in. This one's not. Oh, there it goes. All right, cool. And then we just got to put the axle cups back in place. Like that. And like that. And there we go. I think that's in all the way. Just about. That one needs some help. There we go. Now we're seated in. All right. Now, oh, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. We are forgetting a major step. Almost messed up. You guys figured out what I forgot to do? Got to put your bearing caps back on. It is really, really easy to forget stuff and cause you all kinds of problems later. Without these bearing caps, that diff can walk around. And that could eat up your case, could ruin your bearings, could cause all kinds of problems. So don't forget those. Don't be like me just now. All right, we got our bearing cups. Or caps, bearing caps. Let's put those in there. And that one goes that way. Yeah, what that does is that holds the bearings in place so that they can spin like they're supposed to. Otherwise, the bearings would just be spinning in there free and not actually lubricating or anything like that. That would be super bad. Put our screws in there. Trying to hurry up and get to that transmission. I'm curious to see what that transmission is going to look like after not being open for 4 years. Now, I have opened it. I opened it, shoot, it was quite a while ago, but I know I opened it to do some maintenance on it, and that was a long time ago. And depending on how good a transmission is, you really don't need to maintenance very often. It also depends on what kind of terrain you're going through, mud, water, all that kind of stuff. You go in super deep water, you have to think about the water pressure actually pushing into the case and stuff. That's why, you know, like watches and stuff say they're rated for like 10 or 15 feet or 25 feet and stuff like that, because the deeper in water you go, the more water pressure is pushing into the seals. It's just something to think about when you're doing this kind of stuff. Is there's no such thing as 100% waterproof when it comes to RCs, but you can do your best to make it as close to waterproof up to a certain number of feet as possible. Get these tightened up. You have to be real careful with these plastic housings. Don't get me wrong, I would love to upgrade everything to metal, but there's several downsides by upgrading everything to metal. Weight is good. Unsprung weight is good. However, once you get to a certain point, that rig becomes so heavy that the electronics start to struggle to move it around so much. So that's one big issue. Another big issue too is price, because axles aren't cheap. A metal axle, even just a cheap Amazon axle like this, is like $100. And I can look right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have like 15 trucks. Okay, that's a lot of money in axles. Just if I were to just upgrade everything to metal axles, okay, that's 2 axles per truck. That's 30 axles. That's $3,000 just in axle housing. I can't afford that. I mean, it's just not there. Now, if YouTube blows up and, you know, uh really hits home and I start making all kinds of money with YouTube, by all means, yeah, I'll buy metal axles for all of them. I'll buy them all brushless systems. I'll get the best of the best and all that kind of stuff, because every dollar that this channel makes goes right back into this hobby. It goes right into stuff. I try to do things on the cheap as often as possible, because I feel like that's something that's really lacking in the RC YouTube universe. Is not a lot of people are showing how to do this stuff on the cheap. I did all this work I'm doing right here. I didn't buy any new parts. I'm swapping new parts with old parts on different rigs to get different levels of performance out. So other than the grease and my time, I'm not spending any money. And that's something that, you know, not a whole lot of people are really showing you. I haven't really found any channel that's showing you how to do stuff on the cheap. They're more about, hey, check out the newest, latest, best thing. And there's a lot of those channels doing that, and they're all competing against each other, and I can't compete with that stuff. I can't buy the newest, best stuff all the time like that. Every now and then, I usually get, you know, I'm more I'm more of a vintage, old school collector than the newest, latest thing. I like the old stuff more than anything. All right, we need a 1.5. Where's the 1.5? There we go. Well, let's put this in before we forget. I've actually forgotten to put the diff cover screws in before. Got the whole rig put together, and because that grease holds that cover on, I didn't think about it. So I just left that cover like that, didn't put any screws in there, went out trailing, hit a whole trail and everything else. And then, like, a couple days later, I went back to check on some maintenance and stuff and realized I didn't put any screws in there, and that grease held the cover on the whole time, which was super lucky. All right, where's my screws? Oh, there they are. So I do try to remember to put everything back together. If you make a mistake, mistakes happen, but you just got to try and learn from them. All right, get that one in there. I try to get them all started first by hand. I can turn this a lot faster than I can turn the whole driver. All right, where's that other screw? There you are. Let me get that one in there. now that I got them all started, I'm gonna put my Helios driver on there. I need to buy another one of these. I like these so much. Like they're like, I think these are like $50, but look at this. You can twist the bottom. It's not actually threaded, but I just twisted to take it off. But you can have other drivers in there. And it's got a magnet. And it's got like this little gasket on there to hold it in place. But that is such a handy driver for on the trail. Helios, if you ever see this, send me one of these, guys. If not, I'll buy it. I will. Probably next year at Beat the Creek, I'll probably get me another one or something. I might get the Bowhouse one, actually. Who knows? They're both the same driver. They're just in different colors. I just like the color of the Helios one. The Bowhouse one is, I think, is all gold. All right, we just about got that done. I am very curious to see how this bomber is going to drive with an open diff front end. I know it's going to turn sharper. Yeah, it's going to hurt it a little bit when it comes to like serious technical rock crawling. But honestly, I mean, a lot of trophy trucks and King of the Hammer rigs and stuff, they are open diff in the front. So, I mean, that ought to be a little more realistic, honestly, if you think about it. All right, let's get these axle cups back in place. On there nice and tight. There we go. All right, now we put our screws back in. I want to say, are they longs or shorts? I think they're shorts. Yes, pretty sure. Right? Are they? Yeah, they're shorts. It's a 2mm for these. Well, like I said before, this axle is at least 5 years old, and it's still getting it. It's still doing everything it's supposed to do. But that could be in part because of, you know, the effort I put into maintenance too. Because I know some guys, you know, they tear their stuff up and they're like, oh, it didn't last 6 months. And I'm like, well, it also depends on how you're driving too. There's another one. You do not want to over tighten this. You over tighten it, you'll strip the housing. And there's no good way to fix that. I mean, you might be able to fix it with some JB Weld, but I haven't tested that theory yet. I haven't stripped the housing out yet. Again, knock on wood for me, but I always try to be light-handed when I'm putting in hardware. Taking out hardware, it doesn't really matter. But if you're putting in hardware, you have to be real careful not to over-tighten, because you're threading a metal screw into a plastic housing. And it's so easy to strip that stuff out. All right, where's my other screw? Where'd you go? I know you're in here. There you are. Give me that. And put the bottom one in. And then that's the front end rebuilt. Get in there. There we go. You also have to make sure that you put the right screws back in place. That can be a bit of a challenge. Because if you put too long of a screw in here, you're going to hit the axle. And that would not be good. We are definitely open diff. Whether or not we're going the right direction or not, we'll figure that out in a minute. I'm pretty sure we are. Pretty confident in that. Are we still good? Yeah, we're good. We're good. All right, so that is done. We are open. now's the fun part. We're going to toss that off to the side a little bit, and let's crack this transmission open that hasn't been open for 4 years. This is like a time capsule right here. Any takers as to if this transmission is going to be just completely shot full of rust? I mean, look at the screws. The screws are definitely rusted. That one's completely rusted. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to open this thing. Like, I can't even see anything. That is flat. I also keep a dental pick with me to clean this kind of stuff out. But yeah, this is... I'm curious. I'm definitely curious because like all the bearings feel fine. So like I'm wondering what the inside looks like. Trying to clean them out as best I can. That's another way you can really wear down your tips and stuff, is if you don't clean the holes out real good, you don't get a good seating in there. That's going to cause all kinds of issues. All right, here we go. Let's get this. I'm going to crack them all open by hand first, and then I'll get the drill out. That way I don't strip out any of these screws. Like I said, it's fine to use a drill. You just have to be careful with what you're doing. Any high-powered drill can really mess this stuff up pretty easily. This little drill that I use, it doesn't have a whole lot of power. I don't think it says how much power it makes, but it's very small, and I usually don't have to worry about stripping anything out with that. But just to be on the safe side, because this transmission hasn't been apart for 4 years, I'm just going to start it all by hand just to get a couple turns so that we don't have any issues. All right, I think that's all of them. Let's get cracking. There we go. Here goes nothing. Pretty long screw. Over here. And a short one. So 2 longs and a short on this side. All right, this is the transfer case. Here we go. Looky there. That's like brand new. That thing hasn't been opened in 4 years. Now you can see the grease has pretty much dried up into nothing. Yeah, it's pretty much dry. I'm gonna get some Q-tips and clean that out with some Q-tips. You can see that little bit of white, that's the original grease from when this thing was new. And then I probably put some general purpose grease in here after that, but yeah, that's pretty much dust. But all the bearings are good. Look at that. They're all fine. That spins. That one spins. That one spins. It does spin, right? Yeah, it spins. I'll be darned. That's awesome. I wasn't expecting it to be bad, but man, for me not to open that thing up for 4 years and it still looked like that, that's awesome. That is super lucky. I definitely probably should have maintained this a little more often than 4 years, but you know, never. Transmissions usually, now, not all transmissions are you going to get this lucky with. I can tell you that right now. The TRX4 transmission has an open spot in the top of it that is to, I think it's to vent air, but if you go in deep water with a TRX4 transmission, it's going to suck up water. It's going to happen. I've tried to seal them up. They do not seal up. The SCX 10.3 transmission does not seal up. This bomber transmission, like I said, 4 years. And look at that transfer case. That looks brand new in there, dude. That looks totally fine. Craftsman electric screwdriver. Yeah, I'll look into it. This little guy, I've had this for maybe 2 years, and it's getting the job done. But yeah, I'll look into it for sure. Tools are always a good investment. All right, let's go a little further in here. I'm nervous about this rusted one right here. But I mean, if the hardware is the worst part about this, I'm fine with that, because those gears look brand new. All right, here we go. Now, once I get everything apart, I am going to re-grease everything with some marine grease. Check all the bearings. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. We got one more over here. Those are all the same size. I like that. I like when screws are all the same size, so you don't have to put them back in a specific order. All right, here goes this rusty one. Now, this was the bottom one, so I'm assuming the reason this one's so rusty is because any water that sits, so it sits like this, like that. So if there's any water sitting in the skid plate, that's probably why that one screw is so rusted and the other ones aren't. Is my guess, but we'll find out. Oh, it came out fine. All right, there we go. Let's see what the damage is. And crack the case open. First time the case has been opened in 4 years. Looky there. Not bad. I'm impressed. Boy, they really don't make them like they used to. Okay, so there's actual water in this case right now. I can see it. There's little drops of water. And it's barely anything. Like that grease, that I don't know if you know anything about old school Axial stuff, but that's the original grease from Axial. Oh, I'm dropping gears. Dropping gears. There we go. Before we get too far into this, that goes back in there. We're not ready to take the gears out just yet. There we go. Those go in there. But yeah, I mean, that's really nice in there. Okay, so we have, is that a C-clip? No, it's not a C-clip. I think that one just is a little stuck. I think. It could be a C-clip. Hang on. There could be a C-clip on the end of this. I don't know. It doesn't want to come out. I'm assuming there's a C-clip like this on the other side of here. I don't know. I guess we can start taking it apart and figure it out. Let's push this shaft out. That's all really good. That's in really nice condition. That bearing, that's perfect condition. For not being taken out and worked on for 4 years, that's in really, really good shape. No, I'm not seeing a C-clip. I think this is just seized on there, which that happens. All right, we got that out. This is a dirty job. You're gonna get dirty doing this. It's gonna happen. Push that out. Yeah, we may have to tap on that. I'm assuming there's so much extra space in here because they were planning on putting a 2-speed in this. I don't know. I'm not a super aficionado on old school Axial transmissions. I just know they're built better. What exactly makes them better? Not 100% sure. I just know that they are. You can tell that this is an aspen tree because of the way that it is. Let me find something to grab that so I can tap that shaft out. Probably some needle nose pliers just to hold the shaft in place while I tap on the gear, or vice versa. Either way, a lot of times those shafts like to seize inside the gears. Yeah, I haven't gotten. I mean, this is the closest thing I have to a rock bouncer. I'd like to get an axial rift one day. It's definitely on my list. But I mean, we take this on the trail all the time. It's a fun rig. It can go slow enough, so it actually runs a Holmes Hobby 550 21 turn, and it can go plenty slow enough and fast enough to hit the trails and the rocks and all that stuff. So it's a pretty fun rig. A Rift, I think a stock Rift is brushless out of the box, so it probably doesn't have that good low speed control right out of the box, and that's kind of it's a little bit of a downside for me. I do like to trail. I trail more than I do just about anything else. So that would be a little bit of an issue. Like if I were to get a stock Rift, I'd probably immediately rip those electronics out and put in something with some low speed control. All right, let me go grab something to pull that shaft out. All right, I grabbed a couple of different things. We're gonna, hopefully I won't have to use these, but I have had to use them in the past. I got some electrical pliers, something that hopefully won't put too much of a mark on the shaft, but maybe we can just tap that, is what I'm thinking. Is just tap that gear down. I got a whittle hammer, whittle baby hammer. Oh, I'm so glad that was on camera. I was like, tink, and it was done. So how about that? That was nice. Oh, come on now. Why doesn't it want to go this way? It wants to go down, but not out. Brother. There we go. It's coming out. There we go. Got it. Yeah, it was just barely seized on there, so that wasn't a big deal. And I didn't mark up that shaft any at all, so awesome. Sometimes, especially, so you can see what was causing that seize, there's a little bit of surface rust right there. But the bearing still looks to be super healthy. It just needs to be cleaned up and greased. So that's awesome. I cannot believe this thing hasn't been apart in 4 years and looks this good. I've taken TRX4s apart that were just gone through, and like a week later be just completely full of mud and gunk. So that's really good. I'm not trying to bash TRX4s by any means. It's a great truck. It really is. It's just not for me. It's not fit for my needs. I used to think that was the perfect trail truck, and in some ways it is. In some ways the TRX4 is the perfect trail truck. However, when it comes to maintenance, when it comes to keeping mud and water out of the cases, it just doesn't do a very good job. The electronics are fine. The gear ratio's good. Like, it's got a lot of good things about it. I do not just throw shade on TRX4s for no reason. There is one particular flaw with TRX4s that I don't like, and it has kept me from getting another one, and that is just the maintenance. I don't like doing maintenance on them. Because you have to, I mean, you really have to do maintenance on that thing all the time with the type of trailing and mud and stuff that I do. I have RC four-wheel drive, I have Axial, I have FMS. So I've tried several brands. Axial, as far as maintenance goes, and FMS for that matter. FMS I really don't have to maintain very often. But TRX4s I had to maintain all the time. I'm going to keep the C-clip on there because I really don't want to try and get that off of there and it go flying across the room, because then I'll have to find a new C-clip. So we're going to just leave that on there. It's not hurting anything to keep that on there. It looks like there's the possibility for another C-clip right here, although it wasn't in the case. So maybe I popped that C-clip off 4 years ago and didn't put it back. I don't know. It could have happened. I wasn't as good as maintenance. I wasn't that good at maintenance 4 years ago compared to now. Now I take a lot more time and effort maintaining my stuff, in part because of how rare these are now. 4 years ago, you could still go into a hobby shop and buy these. You can't get these anymore. The only way you're going to get one is through eBay, or if you know a guy who has one. Other than that, you can't just buy them anymore, which really sucks. I really wish they would bring back the Bomber. I wish they'd bring back the Wraith. We're going to get all this old grease out too. I'm just going to replace all of it. So I'm just going to take a old dingy towel, just scrape all that out of there. It was still in pretty good condition. That grease hadn't deteriorated that bad. Not in the transmission anyway. Now in that transfer case, that grease was dust. That was pretty old. And you don't have to be perfect about it. I used to think you had to be real perfect about everything with getting all the old grease out, but you really just gotta, if you can get it as close as possible, that's plenty. Yeah, that's clean enough in my book. We're not a professional race team or anything like that, or else we'd be just replacing everything. We're gonna clean the best we can. For the hard to reach places like deep in there and stuff, I just take a Q-tip and go down in there and just kind of, the reason I like Q-tips, let me grab another one. Q-tips for 5x11 bearings, which I'm pretty sure these are 5x11s, and that's a really common size in a lot of RCs. They fit perfectly inside a 5x11 bearing, so you can do that and just clean the insides like that. That's really nice. We're gonna clean. Oh, we popped that one. Let's pop that back in. Let me clean this one. Alright, all the bearings are in good shape. I thought we were going to for sure have to replace at least 1 or 2 bearings, but they're all spinning really nice. And if you guys follow my videos at all, you know I am not nice to this Bomber. I beat the crap out of this Bomber, and for these bearings to be in this good a shape and be as old as they are, that's awesome. Alright, so this case is done and ready for new grease. So we're going to take our marine grease. Like I said, transmissions and differentials, do not pack this full of grease. You pack this full of grease, you're going to have problems. All we're going to do, we're going to put a little dab on the inside of the bearing and a little dab on the outside of the bearing. A little dab on the inside. I may have to use a Q-tip for that. But we're just dabbing. A little bit of there, and then we're going to take and do make our little gasket seal around the whole thing, and that should keep water out for a very long time. Can you see me? Okay. Red Cat International Scout 2. Nice. Yeah, I actually, my very first trail truck was a Red Cat Scout. That was the very first one I started with. I used to always have go fast stuff. I had Slashes and Revos and T-Maxes. I used to go fast all the time, And as I've aged, I've slowed down. I like to hike. I like to chill and hang out. And you can't really do that with a Revo. You can't take a Revo to a city park and hang out for more than a couple minutes before somebody's trying to kick you out of there. But with crawlers, with scale trucks, I've only ever gotten positive feedback from those. Everybody likes them. All right, so now let's get our gears back in on this side. That's plenty fine. We got a little bit of old grease on the end of this. We can take off. Yeah, these gears look brand new. I cannot believe how good a condition these gears are in. There's not even any surface rust on these. And these are stock gears. This is what came in the box. They really, really don't make them like they used to. My SCX 10.3 Gladiator, that transmission was just a pain. Everything about it was a pain. Hated the whole thing. The case was huge. Taking it apart was such a pain. Putting it back together was a royal pain. Wanted nothing to do with any of that. Now I just got to remember how it goes back together. We got a C-clip on this side. So this goes in this way. Yes? Yes. And then that goes in there. I got a little bit of grease right there. We're going to put a little bit of grease on the gears. Like I said, we're just barely... All this grease will work its way in there. You don't have to... Get off me. Get out of here. There we go. We're talking that much. About that much grease. And then we're good. And then we're going to take this pin. Is that directional? No. It's the same thickness on both sides. That goes in there like so. And then it's this one. Oh, that's cool. So we have... All right, there's almost... I'm not going to say there's no way you can put this together wrong, because I'm sure there is. But if you have some decent common sense, it shouldn't be that hard to put this back together. Kind of rotate those gears, move that grease around some. And then we have our last one that we have to put the shaft through first. So we put our pin, put our little pin in there, and then that goes back in there. And then that goes in through there, right? Oh, wrong one. This one. This one. Yeah, that one. That goes up that way. And then this goes back on there. Ta-da! Let me flip that around. Get my whittle hammer. My whittle hammer. Come on. I know that's the way it goes. Is it seated in the teeth? Ah, there we go. Now it's seated. Perfect. Little tap. Little tap. There we go. Alright. So now, you just work that grease around. Might put a little more grease on there. Maybe. Yeah, just a smidge. It's not quite getting to the last gear. So just a smidge more grease. And then those bearings, whoop, drop my hammer. We got enough grease around this side, so we're just going to clamp that together, and then that'll be done. I do want to put a little bit of grease right on the ends of these, like so. Just like that. Because once I push those bearings on top of that, it's going to create a watertight seal right at the end of the bearing. Just like that. See how it pushed that grease out? So now we have a seal on the back there. And then we're going to clamp that together. So now we have a watertight seal all the way around. And then we can put the T-case back together, and then all we have to do is clean that side, put that side back in, and brand new transmission, just like that. We're gonna put that rusty one back in the bottom. Oh, no, we didn't use that yet. Got the long ones. Whoop! Throwing stuff. Long ones going here, right? Yeah, long ones going there. That's where the long one goes. And then we have one short one on the end. So 3 screws. You have to try your best not to get intimidated by taking stuff apart. One, if you bought this brand new, it comes with a manual, which I bought mine brand new. My manual's somewhere. I think it's somewhere in my toolbox. But there is a parts manual with a diagram that shows you how all this stuff goes together. But for the most part, I mean, if you have some common sense, most of this stuff goes back together pretty easy. You should not be intimidated by working on this stuff. I'm trying to stay in frame. And like I said, plastic housing, metal screw, you want to put this stuff in by hand. If it's a really long screw, I could definitely understand getting it close with the drill and then snugging it up by hand. That's fine too. But while I got the wrist strength, I'm gonna do everything by hand as far as snugging all this stuff up. Like I said before, it's a dirty job. You're gonna get dirty, but one, you're gonna learn a lot about your truck doing this, and also you're gonna save a lot of money working on your own stuff. You do not, and like I said, some people have more money than time, so it's up to you what your schedule looks like and stuff like that. But if you have the time to work on your own stuff, you really should learn to work on it. All right, so we got that watertight seal all the way around there. I'm gonna take my dingy towel here and just kind of wipe off that excess. That way we don't have a bunch of grease flinging everywhere later. But essentially we just waterproof that transfer case and then we're good to go. So, and now we're gonna create a seal on this side. Very small amount of grease. Just kind of go around the edges. That's pretty good. And then that's ready to go back together with this once we clean this out. Well, that spins pretty good. I'd say that bearing's still pretty good. Look at that. Let me give that a spin. That's pretty long spinning for bearing. Which normally I would do that. I really don't want to take this apart because I like the setting I have on that slipper clutch. So all I'm going to do is just clean off the old grease and put some new grease in there and call it a day. So we just take the old grease out. Make sure that's clean enough in there. Pop that back on, and then we just put some new grease in there. And do a dab of grease on the gear. A little dab of grease inside that bearing. And then put a little bit of grease on the shaft. Just because. Whoop. And then we're going to create our watertight seal. I'm sure Axial or Horizon or any RC company for that matter, they could make gaskets for this stuff. They definitely could do it. I don't know if it would just cost too much money or create a manufacturing issue or something like that, but they could make gaskets. But if they can't make gaskets, you have to do what you got to do with this kind of stuff. All right. So now, oh, before we go too far, we're going to do the same thing we did with the TK. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease just on the tip of that shaft there, and a little bit of grease on the tip of this shaft. And back together it goes. Oh, that was super easy. If you know anything about a SCX-10-3 transmission, it is so hard to get all of those shafts to line up and everything. This is just 2 shafts. I mean, I'm pretty sure the SCX-10-3 is 2 shafts. Well, it's technically 3 shafts, but for some reason there's so much slop that it just doesn't want to go back together half the time. All right, and then we put our screws back in. See how we got that watertight seal all the way around it, and that'll keep the water out. And just put our screws back in. Like I said, I'm going to put that rusty one right back at the bottom because it's probably going to rust again. We can snug these up with the drill first. Save my wrist a little bit. About to there. You don't want to go all the way tight with the drill. And how many more? One more. I got one more on that side. Yeah, there's 4 screws total. All right, now that we got all those, we're gonna snug them up by hand. And you'll see when you get tight, I mean, you'll feel the resistance, but you also see the grease smooge out of the sides there. That's how you know you got a good seal. Like I said, do not over tighten your screws. You will regret it. As soon as you feel that resistance, just stop. Right there. All right, and then we're going to take our rag and smear off the excess grease, and we are waterproof transmission. All right, guys, that's all I had planned for today. I'm going to put this back in there. We'll probably make some videos with that open diff soon, and see if it's better, worse, if we like it, don't like it. I know we're going to like the lock diff in the Mega Truck. That's definitely going to be fun. But, yeah, just stay tuned and check out the videos and stuff. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Like this video, like the other videos on the channel and stuff, and keep the love flowing so I can keep making cool videos for you guys. All right, that'll do it for today. Catch you on the next one. Bye.